Let's start with this premise: all Pixar movies are good. It's nearly impossible to find a studio with as good of a track record. Pixar has put out 26 feature-length movies since 1995, and none of them are total duds. Each one has something to recommend, be it a technical achievement, an emotional ride, or unforgettable characters. But that does not mean they're all created equal. Some dazzle with state-of-the-art visuals, others get the tears flowing, and many of them make you feel good with tales of unlikely friendships. Here's the definitive ranking of all Pixar feature films, listed from worst to best. Disagree? Put your own ranking in the comments. If you have any gaps in your Pixar viewing, there's never been a better time to catch up. The fact that Lightning McQueen wrestles with aging in this movie, and is teamed up with a younger, charismatic screen partner, gives this something for the adults to latch onto, but there are still a lot of animated cars zooming around to sit through. While the more cartoonish designs of Arlo, the Apatosaurus star of this movie, and his human cave boyfriend are entertaining to watch, the tale, which covers young Arlo trying to reunite with a lost family, feels overly familiar. Dory trying to find her family, despite her memory loss, is a true story of triumph over adversity. But, to do so, she has to travel through a lot of aquarium tanks. We love these familiar characters, but the plot gets a little bit repetitive. In this Cars sequel, there's a lot of focus on Lightning McQueen's buddy Mater, who is sent on a spy mission. Your mileage might vary depending on how entertaining you think Mater is, but a little Mater goes a long way. Mike Wazowski heads to college hoping to be a champion skier, only to find that he's not as good at it as he thought. That's a tough lesson for a kid's movie, that you're not going to be good at everything, no matter how hard you try or practice. But thankfully there are enough Animal House-style antics to soften the blow. This is famously supposed to be the movie that Andy watched that made him want a Buzz Lightyear action figure. But after seeing it, you would be forgiven if you did not fully understand why he'd actually want it, especially when Socks the cat would clearly be the more desired toy. There's some fun space adventuring and cool sci-fi elements, but Buzz himself seems to be dealing with some problems that read very adult, and the whole thing feels like familiar territory. Pixar's second feature film gets ground level and follows a young, awkward ant, Fleek, as he gets himself into all kinds of trouble. In an unlikely series of events, Fleek calls on the help of a bug circus to help defend fellow ants from an evil grasshopper. If you've seen Seven Samurai, or, The Three Amigos, or Galaxy Quest, you can see where the movie is headed long before the climax. It's crazy how often mothers are absent, or dead, in kids' movies. Think Bambi, Nemo, Cinderella. Finally, there's an adventure movie about mothers and daughters, starring a princess with a rebellious spirit, and here that's basically a character of its own. It's a shame the mom spends so much time transformed into a bear. Onward has to juggle a lot of elements. There's an epic quest, a world where the fantastical and the mundane blend into each other, a story about two brothers and the loss of their father, and, at times, it feels like the balance is off. But the action is great, and the heartwarming parts really land their emotional gut punch. Cars may be about Lightning McQueen, the fastest racer around, but the story really gets going when he heads to Radiator Springs and things slow down a little. There, McQueen gets a lesson in appreciating the little things, a reminder we can all use every now and again. This may be Pixar's most gorgeous film to date, and there's a fun, body-switching adventure to go along with it. But there's also a lot of introspection about the difference between your life's passion versus your life's purposes, and kids, and adults, may find that a bit hard to relate to and heavy to wade through. The fourth installment in the Toy Story franchise introduces a bunch of new characters, Forky, Gabby, Ducky and Bunny, and gives them meaty plotlines. But it also answers a question that was already very elegantly answered in Toy Story 3, about what toys do when it's time to move on. Some might give Luca demerits for not being as ambitious as the 2020 Pixar movie, Onward or Soul. But by keeping the scope small and only using one magical element instead of trying to create complicated, fantastical worlds that exist within our own, Luca is more successful at what it's trying to accomplish, a story about family and friendship. Finding Nemo proves the lengths a father would go, well, swim, for his son. In this case, he also meets some fantastic friends, like the forgetful Dory or chill turtles Crush and Squirt, along the way. It's these characters, rather than the run-of-the-mill plot, that give Nemo its charm. Pixar has a knack for pulling off the unexpected. In Monsters Incorporated, it sets up a backwards world where monsters are believably scared of kids, and it makes a movie about office politicking that is not boring. Lots of adult movies can pull that second thing off. Toy Story started it all way back in 1995, and showed the world that a completely computer-animated feature film was a viable prospect. But, re-watching it now, you can see just how far the technology has come, and the animation here looks much rougher. This movie has a ton of exciting superhero action that sees the main characters lift, stretch, disappear and run their way to victory. But they also have to learn to work together as a team, which is something all families can relate to at one point or another. The third film in the Toy Story franchise examines what happens when people outgrow their old toys, which requires about 10,000 tissues each re-watch. A cowboy and a spaceman, a rat and a chef, a girl and a monster, Pixar always does great work when it comes to unlikely pairings. In Up's case, a cranky old man, an earnest young scout, and an overeager dog head off on a gorgeous, globe-trotting journey and wind up being just the trio needed to defeat some unwitting foes. There's nothing more complex than the emotions of a preteen, but Pixar not only treats this subject with empathy, it creates entertaining and moving story about the feelings in control of a whole world inside a young girl's mind. There's plenty to laugh about when a starry-eyed rat teams up with a hapless chef to get cooking in the kitchen, as Remy and Luigi do in Ratatouille. But there's also a heartwarming lesson tucked in there about how greatness can come from even the most unexpected places. In those early teenage years, kids are like wild beasts, and Turning Red takes that literally, telling the story of Millie, a girl who turns into a giant, wild red panda every time she feels extreme emotions. But what makes it more than just a body horror movie is the way Millie relies on her strongest bonds, her family and friends, to deal with the beast within. Toy Story 2 is the pinnacle of the franchise. With the character dynamics already established, this film can hit the ground running, sending the toys on a mission that's remarkably poignant. Jessie's When She Loved Me and hilariously gag-filled, Buzz and Zurg do their own Star Wars reveal. It would be easy for a movie about a young boy traveling through the land of the dead to turn maudlin, but, in Pixar's hands, Coco remains uplifting, and the candy-colored underworld is a treat for the eyes. Director Brad Bird has such a facility with action sequences. He finds delightful ways to mix up all the different superpowers of all the heroes in this movie. But the family story at the center ensures that there's heart behind all the mayhem. WALL-E is a truly impressive feat, because you feel for the lonely little robot on his Earth cleanup mission from the very beginning, which is mostly wordless, so even really little kids can understand his plight. The movie builds from there, sending WALL-E into space, where he gets to be a brave little hero.